Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Oh, brother, what a terrible night this one was. Let's talk about it a little bit. It's our live Texans-Seahawks postgame show. Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network, presented by FanDuel. Hope you will stay with us if you're live for a few minutes at least. I know it's late out there. Joining me to break it down, contributor and the Bullpen podcast host, Thomas Chavarria, Houston radio legend, Jayson Braddock. And hey, you live YouTube viewers can be a part of the conversation. Hit us with your questions and comments. Jayson, you'd never know the Texans had 15 days to prepare. They were out-coached, out-schemed, and physically dominated in this game.
No, it was a horrible game. One of the worst games I've seen as far as execution from the offensive standpoint. Defense did everything they could to keep them in this game and win this game. But as far as offense, the coaching really held them back, restricted them. They reverted back to week one. Yeah, I mean, that's what the same mistakes, the same personnel decisions. It was week one all over again, and there's no excuse for it.
Tom, Christopher says, pathetic showing on primetime as usual. We've seen it before.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what we wanted. Obviously, 15 days, time to, figure this other team out. And I feel like only half of the team got off the plane. The defense played about as well as you could play against a team that had as many opportunities as they needed to do what they needed. They found ways to get their best player of the football. That's something the Texans struggled mightily to do, even before he got injured. And Jigba's a stud.
Yeah, give Seattle credit. I mean, that's a real team. It's a Super Bowl caliber team. But the Texans continue to prove when they go against the best teams in the NFL, they're not prepared. They're not well coached. They do stupid stuff. They commit a lot of penalties. That's the MO. That's what a DeMeco Ryans team is. I'm going to harp on this as this goes along. Michael D says, and I agree, this proves the O-line sucks and Caserio and Ryans don't know how to select a competent offensive coordinator. Why not? I can't argue with it now. There's stuff that I got issues with Caley, but let's start it off. Texans force a 3 and out. Seahawks first possession. Third long for Stroud. Titus beat badly. Jayson, I mean, this could have been a safety. They got lucky here. What did you see?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have to – the offensive line obviously struggled throughout this game. There were some concerns with I know we're talking about Titus on this play, but there were concerns about Ursery and whether he just – really wasn't tested the last two games against the Titans and the Baltimore Ravens. But here on this play, just sticking with this, outside of Titus's issue on the play, C.J. Stroud just dropping back like his Tecmo Bowl. You're just running back as far as you can and just going to sling it. Just got himself in trouble. Ugly start to the game. Made you feel like, hey, if this is how they're starting this game coming out of the bye week, we don't want to get too far out ahead of it, but you wondered if, what all did they do during the bye week? Where's the preparation at? Because they came out and looked like this was week one coming out preseason football instead of following the bye and preparation's been made for multiple weeks.
Jayson, let me ask you something. Do you think C.J. Stroud, when he goes back in the shotgun, is he going too far back in the pocket? Is he making it harder on his tackles?
Yeah, I actually pointed that out earlier in the year that he would get back outside of the hoop. So even when his tackles would block guys past the hoop, he would get too deep in his drop and fall back even farther where he needed to step up in the pocket. And as the game went along, we saw him do that better at times, step up in that pocket, stay inside of the hoop and get the throw off. But there at the beginning of the game, he regressed back to what we saw at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, he was climbing in the pocket a little bit better as the game goes along, but he's got to stop, falling back more and more because it more often than not ends up in a sack. And, you might as well, if you're going to get sacked, don't lose 10 yards, don't lose 15 yards, lose 5 yards. And frankly, the Seahawks not getting the safety probably helped because they get great field position, helped them. And Arroyo, big completion when Stingley slips in coverage. Bullock can't get there fast enough. Charbonnet punches it in. Terrible start after starting strong the last 2 games. It's back, to this old stuff that we saw earlier in the year. Next Texans possession, the O-line gets bullied on 3rd and short, forcing a quick 3-and-out. Seahawks next drive, first play, Kupp beats Petrie on a 32-yard pass. We talked about Petrie improving, but I mean, this is a Cooper Kupp that's veteran, and he's a really good wide receiver. After what looked like a stop, Tom, Azeez, though, screws the Texans again. Dumb over-aggressive penalty. DeMeco's lack of discipline is back. And look, man, this is enough with Azeez. This is enough. And DeMeco needs to come to the media, and he's got to tell us, look, this isn't acceptable anymore. If Azeez keeps doing it, he's not the guy. Or at least I want him to get pulled from the game when stuff like this happens. I mean, I had people on X telling me, oh, well, he was a running back at that point. Look, quarterbacks get treated differently, Tom. We know that.
Did CJ Stroud get treated differently later in that game when he took shot after shot after he let go of the football? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Azeez got called for that penalty because he's got a history. Now, do I agree with that? Absolutely not. Do I think it was a malicious tackle? Absolutely not. Do I think he completed
I don't
it?
think the refs are sitting there thinking that, we're going to call this penalty. Oh, wait a second. That's Azeez. Now I'm going to throw the no. If you take a quarterback and lift and push him into the ground, that's what's going to happen. And this could have happened against a running back too. When you lift and push a guy into the ground, they don't like it. But forget about a running back. It's a quarterback, Azeez. It. You would stop the guy. You don't have to do that.
I think it's a little bit of both with what you're saying. I actually do believe, even in the heat of the moment, that you notice who the player is and that there are players in every league that have a reputation. I think that follows with them. But to your point, Robert, I definitely believe when you're 3 to 5 yards out of bounds, you're picking them up. You're conscious enough to know that you're 3 to 5 yards out of bounds and you can't land. To your point, with it being a quarterback, you can't land on top of them with all of your weight and come down on them. This is a quarterback-driven league. They do everything in their power to keep those guys healthy. And Tom, you're exactly right. They called the blindside block, I think it was on Ed Ingram, when CJ Stroud lays out after an extra step or two where it goes uncalled. So I hate to be middle of the fence guy and straddle both sides, but I see it y'all's ways. I had no issue with the penalty being called. I think it was foolish of Azeez. At that point, if it's right on the line, I'm probably a little bit more like, that go. But when you're 3 to 5 yards out and you come down with all of your body weight on top of them, you're definitely going to get flagged for that.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that play that you guys are talking about later in the game. Yeah, I agree with that. But this is preventable stuff. That stuff is just terrible officiating. There's nothing you can do about it. But this is stuff that's preventable by the Texans, and it's gotta stop. And Azeez, it's the same guy. That's why I'm bringing it up. This is the same guy that does dumb stuff every other game, and you're a penalty-ridden team, so that's got to stop. And then Stingley, beat by JSN on the TD, but Jayson, why is Petrie not cheating over to JSN and helping Stingley on the touchdown? This is brain stuff with the Texans. This is thought process. This is stuff that can't happen when you've got the best wide receiver in the NFL that is their guy.
Yeah, I think people are still sleeping on JSN a little bit here with take nothing away from Derek Stingley Jr. and Kamari Lassiter. Playing cornerback, outside of quarterbacks, probably the toughest position. When you're a young kid coming up and you're elitely talented, most of the time you're going to get pushed at that wide receiver position. You go to football. If you're the fastest, most athletic, most coordinated, you're going to get pushed to that position. As a cornerback, you've got to have that type of athleticism, but also instincts to mirror those moves of the most elite athletes in the world there on the fly. So, yeah, to your point, Robert, I think there should have been more Yeah, I think you should have gave credit more to JSN of him being one of the elite receivers because he can beat you in this game, and we saw Puka Nacua do that in Week 1. Los Angeles
Yeah,
Rams beating the Texans. And so there's no excuse for it. There's also no excuse, like if you game plan for this game for 2 weeks, you have the bye, it's a Monday night game, you got 15 days to game plan for this. You know, this team is one of the most, they had the second most passing yards coming off of play action going into this. So the whole 2 weeks prepping up to this game, you know, you have to be saying like, hey, let's stay true to our man. Let's not play hero ball. Do not bite on the fakes. And you see right out the gate that they just looked like they didn't know who they were playing. And he bites hard. And I think it was 13 personnel where there's 3 tight ends out there at one point where Stingley cheats up and gets beat behind them.
yeah. Chris Witsy, I'm just looking at the comment, says the season is over. It's worth a conversation. I mean, they're in trouble right now. We'll talk about that more as it goes along. But Texans' next drive dies on a penalty from Ursary and a huge drop by Nico. Just physical, mental mistakes everywhere throughout the game. Texans catch a break on what could have been a safety, goofy play, but the Texans go nowhere. They committed 2 more penalties at this point. One was declined, but if that counted, that would have been 5 penalties already at that point in the game after committing 4 in each of the last 2 games. So this is the same old DeMeco discipline. In other words, lack of discipline. But the Texans, they catch a break. They did catch some breaks in this game because Kubiak lets Cooper Kupp throw. And Tom, you know, I'm hoping this gets Kalen Bullock going. The interception, the ball hawking that we saw last year. Hopefully this gets him rolling a little bit more on that.
I think Seattle was kind of feeling themselves a little bit, going to the back of the Denny's playbook, you know, like, oh, let's try this play we never try. Because, you know, they had 14 points and their defense is as advertised. That is a very good defense. So while we're talking about, you know, this Texan team who had all this time to prepare, I think all the way around Seattle is legit. So as much as you hate to see your team struggle, I can see them struggle and go, okay, I have to respect the other team they're playing. Like in their building, they showed up. They played well. But yeah, there was a lot of things that the Texans could have did to make this game a potential win. They really could have.
Texans finally put together a drive. Schultz, a big 20-yard plus pass play. Then Chubb drops a pass. Andrews steps on Stroud, and the comedy of errors continues. They settle for 3. Seahawks 2-minute drive ends on the DeMeco Autry blocked field goal. And Jayson, if you could just keep DeMeco Autry on the doggone field, that guy changes things.
Yeah, but isn't that the problem, though? You know, we all know the old adage: your best ability is availability. You know, one of my concerns with the Texans going into the season, getting away from Autry, is looking at their wide receivers. You bring in a guy like Christian Kirk, and you already got Nico Collins. You bring in guys with lengthy injury histories. And something I used to always say when I was on radio is that we don't get healthier as we get older. And so you've got what was supposed to be your top 2 wide receivers, Nico and Christian Kirk, and here we are, both of them injured. For Kirk, the second time this year. Autry, that's going to be something that keeps looming throughout his entire career. And I forget his age right now, but I mean, he's definitely not a young buck anymore. So that's still going to be something you have to worry about. But to your point, with Autry getting in there and making plays like he always does when he's in the game, the Texans were gifted so many opportunities. You have to feel bad for the Texans defense, you know, with the way they played in this game. Outscoring the offense, basically, well, almost outscoring the offense, other than the late, if you don't include the late touchdown, that's just in junk time. Now, I know it makes it a 1-score game, but come on, that offense wasn't going down there and scoring again. I mean, it was a comedy of errors throughout this game, watching the Texans offense.
No question. And look, you know, I keep bringing up the penalties, but you know, they actually got a break because the Seahawks were committing a lot of penalties in this game too. And the Texans were kept in this game. This should have been a bigger blowout, they just got lucky. The Seahawks commit 12 penalties for 93 yards. The Texans commit 10 penalties for 105 yards. And this is, I said DeMeco should go 3 weeks ago because the penalties weren't changing. I sort of backtracked because I thought, okay, we're seeing something different. But again, we're back to this. It's the same old, same old. And Christian Kirk, yeah, it's disappointing what's happened with him because, I said, Tom, I don't know if you remember me talking about this. I don't know if you and I have talked about it, but because it was in the offseason. But I just thought, Christian Kirk, I didn't have a problem with him because, as far as acquiring him, because his injuries were not soft tissue. This wasn't hamstrings and that sort of stuff that lingers. These were a little bit more fluke injuries. What did you think, Tom, when they made that signing? Did you worry about Christian Kirk's injury? Because he's not old, he's like late 20s, 29, I think.
No, I didn't have an issue with it. Same reason I didn't think Stephon Diggs was a bad signing when they did that too. I think it's just unlucky the way it worked out. They went out and they said, okay, we're gonna have all this depth, and it hasn't worked that way. They need guys like Higgins and Noel and Hutchinson to grow up fast. Y'all talked about Autry. Autry's 35, by the way. I don't think Autry was ever supposed to be a all-the-time guy. He was supposed to be a guy you sprinkled in there to get the plays that you got tonight from Denico Autry. And I thought that was a great move. I don't think he's supposed to be a full-time guy. I just think that right now he's outperforming some guys that maybe, warranted him playing more. As we go on, there's guys that had really good games tonight. What do we name Tommy two four
Tommy
fingers?
Four Toes.
Yeah,
Tommy Four Toes Togiai.
He had a great game tonight. I mean, it's tough when you like can't look at all the individual because the overarching theme of the game was so bad. It's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and if we're talking about guys that get injured every year, look, Nico right now, it looks like he's going to miss some time potentially, and Nico gets injured every year. Do we get rid of Nico? I mean, some of this is just the NFL, and Nico is a big guy. It's not like he's small. It's not like he's Tank Dell, but he gets injured, and this is, starting to happen more commonly. I mean, we're starting to look at every year Nico's going to miss some games. So let me let it play out a little bit with Christian Kirk. Maybe he's back next week or whatever, but it is a concern that it's a bunch of soft tissue injuries. Obviously, the guy's got a history of injuries and that sort of thing. But we'll see. Just before we move on, I also want to remind everybody, if you're not watching live, just want to hear from you in the YouTube comments. Look for our conversation with Rockets Wire's Ben Dubose Wednesday to talk about the Rockets season opener. Tuesday, thank God, they're coming along. And as always, let your friends know about our live postgame so we can get some feedback from everybody that's watching. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube with notifications so you can get updates on the live shows and all our content. You also want to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. So after the blocked field goal, Stroud does a beautiful job handling pressure, makes a sweet throw on the move to Noel, who makes a gorgeous catch. Fairbairn puts the Texans within 8 at the half. And Tom, huge 6-point swing. You felt fortunate it was even close because the Texans badly outplayed. I'm like, I can't even believe they're in the game right now.
Yeah. The defense did a really good job keeping them in the game. I think, what won't get talked about enough through this game is Jalen Noel. We're talking about Christian Kirk and how, hopefully he comes back and they're able to use him. I think they need to get Jalen Noel more involved. That dude was an absolute weapon late in the game. And I think that they score that because he's able to make a great play. Other guys might have fumbled that pass. He was able to be strong, hold on to the football, get down. I think he had a really good game. And you look at the Texans going into the half going, okay, they get the ball coming out. They're able to do something with that. It's a game again. Obviously not pretty, not sexy. It's not going to be a thing that you're going to look at the box score and go, man, that's my team right there. But sometimes you got to win like that. So at halftime, I still had every confidence that they could figure it out.
But see, that's part of the problem, guys. Where you talk about Jalen Noel and get him more involved, but you come out of here, and I mean, he's ranked top 12 as a kickoff returner, a punt returner. You bring Braxton Berrios, put him on the return game, who kept tackling themselves, making bad decisions back there at return. You're playing him over Noel and Higgins, excuse me. It's week one all over again. The same mistakes you made week one. The first 3 weeks of the season, they're trying to figure out their offensive line. And so last couple of weeks, they finally start building chemistry. And I'm like, hey, Texans got an opportunity in this game because now they've had a couple games with their same starting line. Going to the bye week, they can gel together, build some chemistry. But they come out and they go right back to what they had to start the season. You got a rotation with Laken Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs. You got Jalen Noel playing behind Braxton Berrios, who hasn't been playing all season long. You put him not only on returns, but as a receiver as well. I mean, it was puzzling. And so with that, to your point, Robert, I think you have to question coaching. If you want to question head coach, if you want to question OC, I have no issue with any of it because this was one of the worst showing coaching-wise. It was an embarrassment for the Houston Texans franchise.
Yeah, I agree with Engineer. DeMeco gets out-coached by everyone. I mean, anybody that's a good coach. And look, I mean, with DeMeco, he won the last two. He beat Harbaugh, but Harbaugh was playing with a minor league team. We know that. So, I mean, there you go. The other guy that he beat's already been fired since the Texans played him. So, I mean, yeah, it's bad for DeMeco right now. And I'm done. I'm like done at this point. I tried to give him a little bit of credit for the last couple of games, but we saw it's everybody was right. They all said we're fake. We beat bad teams. The Texans still aren't real. And look, they look like they shouldn't have even been out there. And the 2-win teams around the NFL, I mean, go look around. It's a pretty poor lot. And the Texans are now one of those with 2 wins on the season. They also, after the last stuff we were talking about, they wiped out all their momentum from that immediately to start the second half because, Jayson Stroud, he makes this ill-advised throw on the pick. What happened on the left side of the line? Could you tell? It looked like Ursery, was supposed to get the guy, but, they were doing all these stunts. I mean, Seattle, I give them credit. They were doing some really interesting stunts in this game.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, Juice Scruggs is a replacement level left guard, but he outplayed Laken Tomlinson. That's why they benched Laken Tomlinson for Juice Scruggs. And to go back to him, you got that issue at left guard. You've got Ursery, who struggled early in the beginning of the year. You start him at right tackle. He goes to left tackle, plays okay. Then I think it was either second or third week. He just had a horrible showing. It might have been the Jags game. I'm not sure. But then really wasn't tested against the Titans and Ravens. So people like, well, maybe, including myself, like, well, maybe he's improved some, maybe he's picking it up a little bit, but he wasn't really wasn't proven or tested in those matchups. So I came in this game like, hey, I'm really got an eye on Ursery to see if he's really developed or he just benefited like the Texans from playing lesser opponents. And that's what it looks like happened. He just benefited from lesser opponents because the whole left side of the line was outmatched. And there's so many issues with this offensive line that we could point to in this game, but also I know a lot of people are going to say, well, CJ Stroud, he had to overcome all this. Listen, we can't leave this game without saying CJ Stroud had at least several moments throughout the game, periods of moments where he really struggled. And even when the protection was there, he had happy feet and sailed or underthrew routine throws that he normally hits.
And Tom, I gotta mention that CJ Stroud also just didn't give guys even a shot at some footballs. He overthrew guys by a bunch. I mean, I get it. He was under pressure a lot. It's tough, but that's sometimes the NFL, and he's got to make some better throws, like Jayson said.
What killed me was that we've seen him use his legs to help him like the last couple weeks. And I going into this game, I felt like he needed to do that again. Right. And by the time he got to it, the game was out of reach. You talked about the pass that Chubb dropped. I don't think CJ gave him a ball he could catch. But CJ's running down the middle of the field. I mean, would he have gotten tackled? Yes. Would it have been a 5-6 yard gain? Absolutely. Instead, he tries to make this dump off to Chubb, fearing for his life. And I feel like he's got to do that to keep a defense honest. And there's so many times where he extends plays going backwards, and I'd rather just see him take off going forward, go get 5 or 6 yards, and live to fight another day that way. And it's just like so many times the safety, non-safety, whatever, get rid of the football, man. I understand he's had some successful, awesome moments, extending plays. I understand that, but you can't extend them all. And I just feel like he creates some of this stuff for the offensive line. He creates it for himself by just not going, all right, I'm gonna figure out 2nd and 10 instead of 2nd and 25. So for me, as much as I am big that the offensive line is not where it needs to be, even though during the bye week people were saying, oh, the offensive line's improving and we need to go out and get a tight end, or we need to go out and get, whatever, you name it. And I felt like the trenches needs help. And I still feel that way. And I think CJ's got to do a better job of helping him too, because as good as Ursary might be one day, he's never going to be that way if CJ's running him into a bad spot all the time.
Yeah, and that play I was talking about, let me just mention that, Ursary, they did something where they sent a guy at the tight end. The other guy, he goes around. Ursary just couldn't get out to him quick enough. So, I don't know what you do there. I'm not an O-line expert, but that's what happened. But Stroud, to our point, there's a guy right in the middle of the field. Stroud just throws it, hoping that his receiver is going to out, but the guy's sitting there. He's like basically sitting right there. Sometimes you're going to have to throw it away, and quit telling me that you're talking to Tom Brady and he's giving you advice. If you watch Tom Brady at all for 20 years, that guy was a master of just some downs. Hey, we don't have it. I'm going to throw it away. Start paying attention to what Tom Brady actually did on the field for once, Anyway, they get lucky because the defense holds them to a field goal. Stingley, good coverage on 3rd down. Texans next drive at midfield. This speaks right to what Jayson was talking about. Why we won, and then we go back to the same idiots that were making us lose, because that drive ends on a drop pass by Ogunbowale. Now, he wasn't going to get a 1st down, but why is he on the field to begin with on 3rd down instead of Barbie Marks, who's your better pass catcher? I just, what is the deal here? Where is Bobby Marks at this point? Or Woody? I'm sorry, not Bobby Marks. Woody. Where's Woody Marks at this point? I mean,
I don't blame you. You've
kid,
already shifted to basketball. I think a lot of people in Houston have.
Yeah, I'm thinking about salary cap implications with
right.
Marks and that's her. But Caley, I guess, wasn't happy with Marks helping the Texans win games. He liked the losing guy. I don't know, but give Townsend credit because he comes up with a great punt. Seahawks backed up, and Tom, the game changers on this Texans team do it right there. Danielle and Will combined for a sack, strip, fumble, touchdown. That's the dream when you got these guys, and they do it.
Yeah, I saw a comment earlier. Where was D Hunter at? And he was absolutely there on that play. They both, him and Will, met at the quarterback, and Hunter, like shielding off Darnold, enabled Will to roll over and pick up that football. So, I mean, total game changer. It felt like the momentum was what you needed right then and there, a 2-point conversion, and then the everything tightens up, right? And it just didn't go that way.
Hey, see, that's my problem. Sorry, Robert, but yeah, I was just going to chime in on that 2-point conversion. That's my problem with it. Your offense has no chemistry. They're not doing anything. It's so early in the 3rd quarter. You get that momentum back with the big defensive touchdown. Kick the extra point. Kick the extra. Don't chase points that early in the game by you failing to get that 2-point conversion. Now, once they kick a field goal again and they go up 8. Now you're forced in a situation to where if it plays out that way, you have to score a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. And this offense is giving you no confidence in believing they're scoring there or later. I didn't like those decisions.
Yeah, Jayson, I was going to ask you about the 2-point conversion because Stroud misses Schultz, who might have had a step maybe but I hated the play call and the design. The Stroud rollout cuts the field in half. The other issue is somebody might have screwed up on the pattern because Nico and Woody were standing next to each other, and you had 3 guys within about 8 or 10 yards of each other on that play.
Well, that's the problem. We're how deep into the season now, week 7, and you're still seeing preseason football played by these Texans. We saw a busted play later. We see CJ Stroud multiple times getting guys lined up in their right spot, guys looking like they don't know the playbook. I saw it. I think it was Jalen Noel one time. I saw it with Braxton Berrios, who once again makes you question, why is he even out there? The busted play with Woody Marks in the backfield there with guys being in the same point. We've seen this week in, week out. What does that go back to? It goes back to coaching. And so, I mean, that's the main thing I'm going to hark on is just the coaching. There's so much talent on this team. This defense is so good. Again, I'll say it. You have to feel bad for them because they gave them ample opportunity, kept putting them back in this game. Well, even at a one-score game, you almost felt like the game was out of reach because the offense was so inept.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about this stuff. But before we roll on, I just want to help our listeners worried about your personal data. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. What do data brokers do? Well, your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even info about your family members could all be compiled by data brokers and sold online. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. As someone with an active online presence, privacy, it's really important to me. I've had issues in the past, so I know the hassle. Have you been a victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know somebody who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data. Keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Right now, let's do it. We got a special discount too. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to deleteme.com/HIT. Use the promo code HIT at checkout. HIT. Just think Azeez. HIT. The only way to get 20% off is to go to join deleteme.com/HIT. Enter the code HIT at checkout. That's join deleteme.com/HIT. Code HIT. All right. Seahawks next possession. Darnold throws just a picture perfect pass to JSN. Seahawks settle for a field goal. Thanks to our boy, Tommy T, who has that big stuff on 3rd and short. But the Texans kept going back to the dumb crap that hasn't worked in the past. Come on, Jayson. What were those play calls on 3rd and 4th and short? Where was the sneak? How about using British Brooks, your big fullback there or something? What are they doing there?
No, I mean, we saw it. I know we'll touch on it later in the game as well. But, a lot of times I think we oversimplify things. In these situations, we definitely didn't. You heard it from every fan on social media. You heard it from the announcers. You heard it from every expert in the industry. And I would say every single person was right. The simplest thing there is just the quarterback sneak it. Stroud's done it a couple times this year where he'll find the weak spot in the defensive line where they're given a gap. And so, I mean, right there, you absolutely trust them. Your offensive line is being manhandled. You can't take the ball from under center, hike it, drop back 3 to 4 yards to meet your running back, hand it to him, allow him to run 3 to 4 yards. Because by that point, your offensive line's already lost you 2 yards in the backfield. The line of scrimmage is moved. You have to know your team, especially at this point in the season in pivotal situations. This is a layup. You have to be able to make the layup, and there you make that. You make that quarterback sneak call later in the game. You make that quarterback sneak call. You make the play. That's all you do. Don't oversimplify it if you want to call it. Simplify it. Doesn't matter. Get the damn first down. And they made it. They played into their weaknesses and into Seattle's strength. And again, it keeps going back to coaching. We can point out different players that didn't have the best game and had issues. All of that is amplified by coaching and the poor decisions and the poor play calling that put them all with their back against the wall.
Tom, they just did this the last few weeks. They were doing their quarterback sneak. I thought this was over with. I thought the Dare Ogunbowale thing was over with. I thought Jalen Noel back taking punts was over with. I thought, like it's what Jason said. Like, how come we went back to everything that wasn't working? Like, what is the deal? And look, I get it. Seattle's got a great front guy. So, oh yeah, it's going to be a little bit harder. But when Jake Andrews knows when the snap's coming and the other guy doesn't know when the snap coming, and you need a half yard. Come on. I mean, this is 2 chances to get a half yard on a quarterback sneak. This shouldn't have been. This is not brain surgery. I mean, I don't get it.
I'm convinced. I'm 100% convinced. No one will convince me otherwise until I hear it from the man himself. CJ Stroud just doesn't want to do it. I don't Bleav when you talk about or you hear DeMeco Ryans talk about toughness and talk about people the way he does, and even Nick Caley to an extent, hear him talk about football, think that they're just, you know what? We can't do that. We don't want to do that. I refuse to believe it. We're all sitting here, myself included, all of y'all watching the game going, that's what this requires. I refuse to believe they're sitting there going, you know what? That's too high IQ. No, this has to be a personnel thing. This has to be.
Tommy just did it. He just did it like the last few weeks.
And for all intents and purposes, he complained about it because there's no reason that not once, not twice, but 3 times in this game, he had an opportunity to do it, and they didn't do it not one time. Now, I refuse to believe that, we just had the wrong running back there. Or, we should have ran to the right side instead of the left side, which the left side was the worst. I don't know what inspired them to go left.
Right.
There's no reason to go behind Juice Scruggs or Laken Tomlinson at all. So this has to be a personnel thing. This has to be CJ is uncomfortable. CJ doesn't want to do it, and we will never hear about it. That's just my tinfoil hat take on that. I hope I'm wrong.
Breaking news, Tom calls CJ a coward. You heard it here. I mean, that's the headlines. That's the headlines.
That's a strong way to take my take, but okay.
No.
That's the only way I'm taking it. So 3rd and 7, Stingley's nowhere close to JSN. For some reason, Will Anderson's in zone coverage. So that keeps that drive rolling along. Lassiter commits pass interference. It's back to a 2-touchdown game. I'll skip asking you guys about that, but the physical mental errors continue. Tremont Smith drops the kickoff return, putting the Texans in bad field position. I mean, just all these little things. I mean, that might not have seemed like a big deal, but him dropping the kickoff return probably cost you 10 yards. That leads to a 3-and-out. Stroud sacked on 3rd down, one of many creative blitz packages that totally confused Caley's offense. And I wanted to ask Jason this, is it just me, or are the Texans blitzes nowhere near as creative as I see with these other defensive guys?
I mean, it's probably a little bit of that. It's also a lot to do with the quarterback, the offensive line, and their lack of ability of picking them up and making simple things look hard. Again, I hate to keep saying it every single segment that you come to me, but it all goes back to coaching. Every single bit of this goes back to coaching. I mean, the first couple weeks of the season, guys, I'm like, why aren't they using CJ Stroud more in play action? Get him out there, bootleg him out, get him in the space, and you give him space. You see him every time they rolled out Stroud. Dalton Schultz is just looking him in his face, wide open. It was there all game long. I guarantee you, if we go back and look at all 22, there's deep shots that's there. But yet they didn't do it the first couple weeks. They started doing it the last weeks, and he had his best games, 2 of the best games of his career when we talk about completion percentage. Yes, we can talk about the level of competition and how the Titans aren't good and the Ravens didn't have anybody playing, basically. All that being said, what they did good against them, though, was getting play action. I want to say their last game against the Ravens, they had play action that they did the first week of the season. This looked like back week 1. And if you question me on it, listen to Dan Orlovsky. And I think a lot about quarterbacks that play the position because they see the game differently. And everything we've been talking about, Dan Orlovsky, who's laying his eyes on this game, watching it live, is saying the same thing. Why aren't you using his feet, like Tom mentioned? Why aren't you getting him in space? Why aren't you getting him out and you're playing against one of the teams that are the best at play action against a Kubiak. DeMeco comes from Shanahan, played for Kubiak. The Kubiak Shanahan system's right there. You see how great CJ Stroud does it. You know how it can mask issues with the offensive line. It can even take mediocre quarterbacks and make them great. And I mean, for any Matt Schaub fans listening, I don't mean to offend you, but that system is why Mac Jones can step in San Francisco and Brock Purdy can get this massive contract as a Mr. Irrelevant. It's so quarterback friendly, and yet the Texans go away from it. And throughout the game, it's like, we're struggling with this. We're struggling with getting CJ's time. Let's not do what we've been successful. Let's revert back to how we started the season and make all the same mistakes we made week one. Let's do it all over again. It should. What's the definition of insanity, guys? You know the saying. And that's what the Texans said. Yeah, we're going for insanity in this one.
Yeah, I mean, 100%, 100%. I don't get it. It was like they had 2 weeks to think, and all they thought about is, hey, you know what? Let's try that same stuff that where we lost and we went 0-3 and all the same stuff that didn't work last year. Let's go back to that. And Nick Caley's like, hey, I use everything. And, it's not just New England, but this feels like New England because it's like, hey, let's treat CJ Stroud like Tom Brady. He's not Tom Brady. He's CJ Stroud. Like, let's forget that. Let's forget that and start treating him like he's CJ Stroud. Next possession, Texans force a punt. Next Texan drive goes nowhere. You had the Nico and Schultz injuries. It was a disaster. By the way, just an aside, I just give Schultz some credit. I mean, this guy has had a really nice season and a lot of catches again in this game, and he's just been very consistent this year. MJ Stewart forces the Texans' third defensive turnover. Great strip. But here you go, Tom. I'll let you go off on this one. Ingram called for the blindside block. No idea how the hell you call that against an offensive lineman and pass for, like, how can you get called for a blindside block when forget the late hit. How do you get, what is that? He's in pass protection. How do you, there's no such thing as a blindside block there.
Yeah. I don't want anybody to get it conflicted. Like Seattle absolutely won this football game, but they had the benefit of some of the worst calls late game. This one for me, I don't understand it. I don't see how you justify that and then miss the CJ blow up when it's right there. They're next to each other. Like, you just can't tell me that I can't hit Darnold the way Azeez did, but that dude could blow up CJ the way he did. And it's just, to me, it's not the same sheet of music. You're going to protect this quarterback, you should protect that quarterback too. Like those hits, if that's Mahomes, that's 30-yard penalty. They don't even have one of those. They created one for it. You know what I mean? It's so bad. That guy, that you can't touch that dude. You can't sneeze in this direction. But CJ is just literally dragging himself up off the ground after every borderline late hit because they're not blowing the whistle. So I'm going to keep doing it till you stop me. And they did. And for me, I hate it. There's another penalty that we'll get to later, a couple penalties, or one that was and one that wasn't. And to me, you can't do it. I don't see how you can do it. It's so hard for them already on offense. And then you add this to it and it's tough. There was some stuff where the receivers got roughed up too throughout this game where I felt like, okay, you could have called holding, PI, whatever, and we didn't get any of that. And to me, they need all of that on the offense right now.
The defense refused to die. Stingley intercepts Darnold. And you might hey, Tom, you're probably going to disagree on me. I know you will. I had no issue with the flag on Stingley for what looked like a face mask. That's what it looked like to me, because the helmet comes off and, in that situation. But even if it's not, there was nothing else that went on the sideline except a dumb Texan doing a dumb thing that he frankly got away with. Christian Harris, who's a wasted roster space these days, not doing anything except should have been called, Tom, for a personal foul on JSN there. You can disagree with me, but when you go in and hit JSN when he's sitting down, like when he's basically out of the play at that point, I mean, he should have been called for a personal foul. If you're going to tell me that's not something on Stingley, you still should have and probably would have gotten screwed, because he should have been called for something right there.
So that whole thing on the sideline starts because JSN shoves Stingley because of the other stuff. And for me, the face mask thing, if that's an offensive player that stiff arms a defensive player and knocks his helmet off, it's top 10 Sports Center highlight. It's a defensive player, it's a flag. I have a problem with that. If an offensive player can stiff arm you into the next century, doesn't matter what happens to you, but Stingley stiff arms you, no, we can't do that. The shove, I think, instigated the other stuff. You're right. Christian Harris should have got a flag. I'll agree that. But for me, I can't understand how the only thing out of that was we're going to get Stingley off rip. And the extracurricular, the retaliation didn't get caught when everybody knows the retaliation is normally what gets got. But, I mean, I was just happy we got the ball going the other way.
Jayson, what do you think?
I thought Stingley got some of the face mask to obviously take the helmet off his head and everything. So I didn't have an issue with them making a call with both of y'all that I thought Harris was going to get another flag on top of it. I'm guessing Harris just wanted, if he had family watching, to say, see, I do play for the Texans. Because, I mean, you don't see him any other time. So, I mean, at this point, I had mentioned that, with the 49ers injury of Bryce Huff, and Fred Warner, that, the Texans would wait until after they played the 49ers and can trade either one of those guys to 49ers. We know those teams familiar with each other. They like to trade, like the Malik Collins trade, different guys like that. And I said you'd have to wait till after they play the 49ers next week before the deadline on November 4th. At this point, who cares? I mean, go ahead and trade them. I mean, like the Texans offense, I mean, after coming out the bye week and this, a lot of times I say fans are too reactionary. I see all the comments about fire Nick Caley, fire this guy and all that. I don't even think it's reactionary. This was that embarrassing on national TV on Monday night after a bye week, after you thought you had so many things figured out, and that you're like, okay, well, the Texans lost the first 3 games. At least they figured some things out. And to go back to, like you said, Robert, to everything we did wrong. If you're in the coach's mindset and you're like, hey, guys, everything we did wrong to start the season, I think it's a great strategy to go back to every single one of those things. Let's start Henry Toa. Let's put Dari back in the mix. Let's get Nick Chubb more involved in a game where you're going to have to pass the ball to the running backs a lot, and that's not his strength at all. Let's go back to a rotation with Laken Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs. Let's promote a veteran wide receiver in Braxton Berrios over the young guys at Jalen Noel, to Tom's point, who's showing that he's one of the most consistent big play wide receivers on this team, and a guy you drafted high in this draft, and Jaden Higgins as well. And yet every mistake they made to start the season, they got away from it in their 4th and 5th game of the season. And then during the bye week, it's like they overthought and like went back to, everything we were thinking this offseason that'll work out. I still like that. Let's go back to every single one of those poor decisions. And it cost them a game that the defense kept gift-wrapping back to the offense, and the offense kept screwing over the defense and put them with their back against the wall until it got to a point they couldn't overcome it.
Did I miss something, Jayson? Was Nick Chubb hurt late in this game? Because I didn't see him out on the field, and they had all these short yardage situations. Did the broadcaster say anything about that?
I didn't hear anything about an injury, but the way I chalked it up to it is that Dari, as much as everybody hates him, and I don't understand why he's been on the team as long as he has. I've joked in the past saying that I think he's got some secret files on Nick Caserio on the Houston Texans, maybe Cal McNair, I'm not sure, because he's going to stay on this roster year after year. It doesn't make sense to me. And that being said, though, once you got in this situation that the running game's going nowhere, I think Woody Marks had 10 carries for 15 yards. Nick Chubb didn't do anything. I think C.J. Stroud finished the game as the leading rusher, if I'm not mistaken. And so it got to the point where the only thing you wanted from your backs was receiving ability. That's not a strong suit for Nick Chubb.
No.
I'm
talking. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying,
okay.
why is Nick Chubb not in the backfield on 3rd and 4th and 1 in that sequence that we were talking about earlier? Where was he at the goal line late in the game? Why isn't Nick Chubb back there? Why is Woody Marks back there? That's what I don't understand.
Oh, no, those are all fair questions, because in that situation, that's Nick Chubb's wheelhouse, excuse me. So absolutely 100%, you're going to want Nick Chubb in that position if you're looking for the tough yardage. That's the main reason he would roster at this point, if you ask me. So like many things, it was like they were doing everything contrary to what they were supposed to do. We're all a little bit, I'm guessing probably Tom's a little bit younger than us, but I know me and Robert, and I'm sure Tom remembers it too, the movie Major League, owners just tanking them to try to move the team. I'm sitting here watching this game. I'm like, do they want to move the Texans or something? Because that's every decision they made, it seemed like it was to sabotage the Texans franchise. I mean, it didn't make any sense to me. That's how puzzling it was. When you have both announcers that normally stay pretty professional and don't over-critique teams, and they're asking the same stuff the fans and the local media and everybody else is, it's become that apparently obvious that none of these decisions are making sense. And I'm like, it felt like Major League the movie when they're trying to tank the season and move the franchise. I'm obviously tongue in cheek, but I mean, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, at this point, if Chubb was healthy, Nick Caley should be fired. The way they used the running backs, he had 5 carries in this game. He did not carry the ball when you had a 4th and 1. Instead, it was Woody Marks, and they were trying to, like Tom said, they were trying to go left, but also they weren't just going straight ahead. I mean, it's 4th and a half yard. You don't try to get cute on a 4th and a half yard. It's not even a half yard. And again, like I said, where was he at the goal line? I was about to get to that. It's one of the dumbest sequences I've ever seen. No quarterback sneak again, no handoffs to British Brooks. He's back there. If you're not gonna play Chubb, British Brooks is the guy. He's big and he's strong, and he's shown he could. He showed you last time they played. He got 2 big plays. We were talking about it last time. It's just like we remember this, Jayson and Tom. Did Nick Caley forget? Did he get hit in the head at some point in the last 15 days? Is he got amnesia? Like what happened early in the season? It just blows me away. And, Engineer said something. What did he say? He's talking about how good the defense is. There was some other comment that he said. But yeah, I am so confused as to what this team is doing right now. And we're at the point where, I said before, DeMeco's not good enough. I'm at the point now, DeMeco, Nick Caley, all these guys. I mean, Tom, you're Mr. Positivity, so I'll let you handle this. But I'm at the point, all of them, the whole lot need to go, because they literally don't know anything about football. It looks like they totally don't understand what's going on out on the field. They're running plays you don't run in these situations. They're doing things that make literally no sense. And the Texans seem like they have the IQ of a hummingbird. It is the dumbest team I have ever seen. The penalties, all the garbage. Yeah, they've got talent, but it doesn't matter because you got people in charge that don't understand what's going on.
Well, for me, I don't know. I don't know what you thought this season was going to be when you hire a first-time rookie offensive coordinator and hope that he's just going to hit the ground running, who was a tight ends coach, albeit in the tree.
Right,
I mean,
hold on.
If you just step back from it and go, this is what we're going to give you.
Wait. Look, you can't hire an offensive coordinator that's an offensive coordinator. If he's any good, he's going to keep the job. And I'm tired of this. You can't find good first-time offensive coordinators. There's guys that other teams find. Jason, am I crazy? There are guys other teams find all the time that are first-time offensive coordinator. Look, Chip Kelly, did you want to hire him? How's it going with the Raiders right now? There's guys that, if you know what you're doing, you find smart guys on other teams. Look, Detroit Lions, we saw them earlier tonight. They had a linebacker coach, never been a defensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn leaves. That team is a menace on defense. You can't tell me that you can't find first-time guys, Jason. You got to be able to find guys that it's their first job, because if not, you found a guy that was fired because he was incompetent or people didn't like him at the other place that he was at.
Well, here, and I'll give y'all something to chew on. I'd love to get both of y'all's thoughts on this, Tom and Rob. For me, I have, again, I always said when I used to do a post-game show on the radio, I'd say this would give you reaction, not reactionary. So I don't want y'all to think, the listener, that this is coming from a reactionary place to this. This game, the offense and the coaching felt so bad and so inept. I remember walking out of the Texans press box and just going home, not even going to the press conference, because there's nothing I wanted to hear them. You know what year that was? That was the year Matt Schaub developed the pick six syndromes, where every game he was just throwing a pick six for however many games straight. And I just watched them, like, just game after game, just give it away to the point where you're like, well, they're just going to figure out a way to lose. So I don't feel like there's anything to look up. And so without getting too long-winded, let me branch this off to 2 points. First, if you're considering moving on from the – and I have no issue if they come out tomorrow and say, we fired Nick Caley. And I think that should be the first move. And then you let DeMeco go through the rest of the season. I know let me go and say this before anybody says it. I feel like if you fire Nick Caley, you don't need to necessarily fire DeMeco. See if he can turn it around. You let Gerard Johnson, who had teams really want to look at him as an offensive coordinator, and people want to say, well, what has he done for C.J. Stroud the last couple of years? I don't know. I don't know what that relationship's like. I don't know how much an offensive mind, but I know he's a former quarterback, played for several NFL teams, playing great at A&M before the shoulder injury that didn't get right, and then Tannehill supplanted him there towards the end at Texas A&M. But he's got a great offensive mind, great guy. I would like to see him get a trial run the rest of the season. It can't be any worse. And I'd like to see a guy that was getting interviews as an offensive coordinator that's in-house to see what he can do for the rest of this year, because I don't think they're playing for much. And I would have said that before this game, even if they lost, coming to this game if they lost. But the way they lost, the way they looked on offense, all the issues, all the mistakes are still being made. I can't make a case for Nick Caley to stick around. That being said, at the end of the season, if Gerard Johnson's not showing you that thing and you want to move on from DeMeco, then I think they definitely need to hire. And this is kind of that best of both worlds I was talking about, where Tom was talking about, and you as well, Robert, that it's hard to get an OC that if he's any good, you can't get him just to come over as an AC. Well, find an offensive-minded guy that's a proven OC that can be your head coach, because the defense, you can just sign a cast-off D coordinator because you've got such a stellar unit. And most of those guys are going to return next year. Bring in then a good DC and bring in an offensive guy to be your head coach that's a proven offensive coordinator, because that's what your franchise is about, your quarterback. If you got a great defense, that's a cherry on top, but you have to have that franchise quarterback. And y'all's thoughts on that?
Tom?
I mean, I think that's something like before DeMeco. I think that might have been the way to go. I truly believe he has a Super Bowl caliber defense, and I know Matt Burke is running, it, but I believe it's DeMeco. Everything that so if you're out on him, you gotta obviously kind of like change that, right? Maybe Matt Burke just keeps it going. Maybe they keep him, whatever. I don't know. But to me, I think you look around the league and you see either a stacked unit with a great offensive mind, like you're talking about, that can help your quarterback get through, or you don't. And for me, I thought they should have hired a veteran OC. You can look around the league where there's some guys that, retreaded. I can't think of the name of the dude that's in Dallas right now, but they're lighting the world on fire. And he failed wherever he was, and then now he's in Dallas. Dallas is stacked. They're killing it. So I don't believe that you can't get a veteran OC to come in here with that defense with DeMeco and make it work. I think people want that sexy young name to catch him before someone else does. They want to find the next KOC. They want to find the next Ben Johnson. It's just hard to do. And then you go into the tree and then you roll the dice a little bit. He's had 6 games. It's not a huge sample size, but I think this team was constructed with that mindset. He's going to have to grow. There were going to be growing pains. It wasn't going to be he was just going to show up and bang, everything was going to be rolling. It's asinine to think that a young guy's not going to struggle and make mistakes. I mean, you feel that way about some of your rookies too. We're talking about Ursary going, he can still be great. Didn't look great tonight. I still believe in him, but I also watched him get his butt whooped tonight too. And yes, I know the league NFL stands for not for long. I get it. So I don't think you're wrong to say everybody out, but some of the teams that don't do that end up figuring it out. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I hope that Caley would work. I clearly think that personnel is huge right now for you, I think for you, Jayson. Tremont Smith. We haven't talked about him. Why on earth was he returning punts or kickoffs or anything? Where did that come from? I don't even know. Like I don't even understand that move. And it didn't look good tonight. And they had bad field position all night. So there's a lot of personnel, and if you want to hang that on the head coach, you can. I don't know where that lies. Somebody needs to answer some questions, because I'd really like to know why some of these guys. Why is Dare on offense? That makes no sense to me. Why all the questions we had about personnel? Please tell me what the thought process was there.
Yeah, just on Tremont, I believe he's been returning kicks this year. They just figured out, don't kick it to Noel because he's good. I mean, that's, if you put Berrios back there, that guy was slipping on banana peel. So and he didn't do a good job when he was stuck back there on punt. So I didn't want to necessarily see him. Michael D says can't move on from DeMeco without firing Caserio. This is Caserio's 3rd head coach. Yeah, you can argue about this. I want to talk something because I finally figured out. I finally remember what engineer had said. I want to address. But speaking to Nick Caley, I got to say something about him. Just before I mentioned that, just our friends at FanDuel had the Seahawks by 3.5 points. I thought that was way too much, but what did I know? I mean, this should have been a much bigger blowout than it was, frankly. I mean, the Texans, could have easily got beat by 30 if, the Seahawks didn't do some weird stuff and some crazy stuff. That the Texans did manage to jump the over-under for the 2nd time this year. So, it looks like maybe the Sharps have finally figured that out. Now, the Barbie Marks late TD finally puts the game, it finally puts it over the top on the over-under. But the one thing that I just got to mention also about Caley that frustrated me on that particular drive, guys, why are they not in no huddle mode? And this is Bobby Slowick being too slow. This is Nick Caley being too slow. I mean, why are we the only team that doesn't understand you got to speed things up? And this is like another, to me, mark against Nick Caley. What the hell's going on? I don't understand why we are the only team that doesn't know how to speed up the offense. Could somebody explain that to me?
Well, I think it goes to what you're talking about, a first-time OC. There's all these different moving pieces in your head, and where guys who have that experience, it just shoots off. Like we're always talking about, rookie quarterbacks and, just rookies in general, how the game speeds up for them. Same thing with coaching. You got all this verbiage. You're trying to figure out down and distant, time left in the game, what you should be doing, your personnel. It's a lot to consider, but the guys who are vets at it, just like the vet quarterbacks, just make everything look so easy when you got a first-year guy. So to Tom's point, I think he brings up excellent points. And if you hire Nick Caley, it's such a small sample size with 6 games, which I completely agree with. And he also pointed out that, well, if you make that decision, you got to be thinking like, well, this is your first time OC. You got to kind of have a long leash there with it, for lack of a better terminology. That being said, though, I think you also, and maybe this is something they should have considered at the time. You've got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson, who you both took in the top 3 picks, coming up for contract extensions. We already know about how important it is to try to win during that window when you have a quarterback on his rookie contract. But when that quarterback was also picked 1 pick ahead of a franchise pass rusher, they made quarterback money. Both of those contracts are coming due, so I don't think you have that luxury to give Nick Caley the long rope as you typically want to. So I think it's an excellent point by Tom to mention it's such a small sample size, and you got to hire him with knowing that you got to give him time to develop. But I don't think they have that luxury. You got 3. The Texans get to come home. It would look better if they came out of this with the win. They don't leave for the next month, and when they do, it's the Titans. And so, but at this point, I don't think anybody has confidence that these next 3 games against 4 and 5 win teams that the Texans can give you anything on offense better than what you saw against Seattle. At least that was my viewpoint with how bad this was tonight.
Yeah, I don't understand this whole, well, he's a first-time offensive coordinator. Has he been around football his whole life? Are we the only ones that can figure out, hey, maybe give the ball to British Brooks or Nick Chubb on short yardage, or do a quarterback sneak? This is football 101. This is like a monkey that's a Texas fan with his monkey hat on could figure out how to do some of this stuff. This is
Curious George.
This is basic crap. And on Nick Caserio, engineer was saying, okay, he's hired 3 head coaches. Well, we knew that, 1 or 2 of those guys were taking the fall because they knew the team was tanking. They didn't want a good coach because this was called a soft tank, basically. And that's how they got CJ Stroud, and that's how they got Will Anderson. So thank you for that. The other thing is that engineer said, and, I don't know what, you think about this, Jayson, but, he said, well, they didn't put anything into the offense. The reason the defense is great because they put everything into the defense. They didn't put anything into the offense. All right, Jayson. They didn't put anything into the offense. CJ Stroud was the 2nd pick of the draft. They have 5 offensive linemen that they've drafted in the 1st and 2nd round. They have 2 wide receivers that are 2nd round picks, and this guy Nico Collins that turned out pretty good. I forget if he was 2nd or 3rd round, but he's pretty good. These are Woody Marks was a 3rd round pick. They're all their guys on offense are high picks. Like, what am I missing? I mean, Dalton Schultz was a guy that they grabbed in free agency, was one of the best catching tight ends, and he's done a nice job. Like, what am I missing? They've invested in the offense.
Yeah, now you got Kate Stover in the 4th round as well. Unfortunate injury. Wasn't playing healthy last year. Gets the injury early in the season this year. As you mentioned, you signed Schultz health track. You got Nico in the 3rd round. You got Tank Dell, I think, was the 3rd round as well. Jalen Noel's the 3rd. Jaden Higgins 2nd round, and Fringe 1st round. I mean, we're talking about 1-2 picks away from the last pick in the 1st round. So that's high level back end 1st round pick there. You drafted John Mechie, even though he's not here anymore. You drafted him in the 2nd round, and you might have taken him over George Pickens, if I'm not mistaken, and Alec Pierce. And so there's some quality stuff there, and you can't say they didn't invest in the offensive line. To your point, outside of the 1st round pick on Titus Howard, you used 2nd round picks on offensive tackles in the last 2 drafts. Where was Juice Scruggs drafted at? Kenyon Green was a 1st. Yeah, Kenyon Green was a 1st round pick, and so that's a lot of high level picks there. So to my point is that if you do decide to move on from DeMeco Ryans, and to engineer's point that you'd have to, I think it was engineer, that you have to move on from Nick Caserio, I have no issue with it. I think you give them a hat tip. him for getting you out of the DeMeco Ryans and sell the Cleveland Browns on giving them that contract and giving up all those picks that Texans franchise was rewarded with, and being able to make that aggressive move to get you Will Anderson Jr. and C.J. Stroud. But I don't think he's done anything. You bring him here because you're like, well, he came from the Patriots with Belichick and Brady. How's Belichick looking without Brady? How's Caserio looking without Brady? You brought him here to equal win and to have that type of mindset that brings you Super Bowl. You're still a franchise that started in 2002 and have never sniffed an AFC championship game. So I don't think anything's off the tables if you decide to move on from DeMeco Ryans.
And let me point out that Caserio didn't hire DeMeco. I mean, that was more of a Cal McNair move from what I heard. So I don't think he had a huge say in that. I feel like they said, we like DeMeco. He's a hot candidate. We want him. So if you got a problem with what DeMeco's doing, that ain't on Caserio. Like I said, those other guys were probably fall guys because, they knew they were going to be bad and they just didn't go out and get like the best coach. Because if you got the best coach, then all of a sudden you don't get CJ Stroud and you don't get Will Anderson. So, and he makes the trade to get Will Anderson. Some people criticize that nationally. That was the right move. The CJ Stroud pick was a good pick. You could have picked Anthony Richardson. Some people thought, oh, maybe he's the guy. No, they got the right guy in CJ Stroud. Look, Nick Caserio has done a lot of good things. And I understand the criticism. I think he doesn't help his case. I don't know what you think, Tom. He's a guy that does not help his case because he is so impersonal. He's like a robot. His interviews are terrible. He won't say anything. If you just make yourself act like a human being in front of the media and you try to answer questions instead of being like you're some sort of like R2D2 or whatever, then, I mean, well, hell, R2D2 had like a sense of humor. Like, no, he's worse than that. So if he did that, I don't think people would hate Nick Caserio. I just think, he just doesn't help himself at all.
I think people are going to hate the coach, the GM, the assistant coach. They're going to hate them all if they don't win. Like, winning cures all. Like, if the Texans were winning, we're not talking about Nick Caserio. If the Texans were winning, we're not talking about DeMeco Ryans. Like they're just – bottom line, they're not getting the job done, and that's why we're talking about firing these guys. I don't care about the how much he doesn't say and the word, the vegetable word, whatever, salad that he gets up there and he talks in riddles. I mean, yeah, I guess if you want him to be more personal and tell you exactly how he feels and what he thinks, I guess that'd be kind of cool. But at the end of the day, I need him to go make solid picks. I need him to go get Will Anderson like he did. I need him to get, draft CJ Stroud over Anthony Richardson. I need him to make those moves. And I think he's been a good GM to this point. I mean, the Texans are coming off of 2 10-7 seasons. I do believe that, the OC thing should fall on him because he should have, like to Jason's point, he should have thought about the window and how critical this next 2 years was and how important it was to have somebody in his ear that would get the most out of him, not somebody that could grow with him. Because I think that's really the problem. CJ's having to grow with another offensive coordinator. This is the second young guy that, he's basically had to are you sure you know what you're talking about? Are we sure this is going to work? And he doesn't have that sense of security going, no, this is a proven dude who's been in the league, who's won at other places that can lead me. And instead of all right, we're working together to try to figure this thing out. Because I genuinely feel like that's probably part of CJ's problem is that he doesn't necessarily trust what there is. If you saw after the 4th and 1, after the 3rd and 1, they panned over to CJ on the sideline. He had the tablet in his hand, shaking his head. I don't think he agreed with either of those running plays either.
Well, we lost Jayson. He probably nodded off, but I just want to close it out because we're well into the night. I appreciate Tom going well into the night with me and Jayson as well. Thanks for joining us on the Houston Sports Talk live Texans postgame show. Don't forget to check out Tom on the Bullpen podcast. It's at Third Coast Tom. Also, Jayson at Jayson Braddock. Jayson. Remember the Y when you look him up. Follow him if you aren't already. I'm assuming most of you are already. Show is presented by FanDuel. FanDuel.com, the place to go Thanks to both our experts here. Great insight as always. And come on, Texans, let's get this thing squared away. Got to get better. We'll talk to you next week.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.